Good morning. I'll call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors, May 25, 2021, here in Palm Desert. And would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm supposed to read this thing. I'd like to make clear for the record that this meeting is being conducted by teleconference pursuant to the Brown Act waivers provided for under Governor's executive orders in response to the COVID-19 state of emergency. The agenda states that the public may view this meeting online as there will be no public location for attending in person. This meeting is being live streamed on the district website. As stated on the agenda, members of the public who wish to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the district or any item on the agenda were given the opportunity to submit comments by emailing the district. Such comments will become part of the board meeting record. And were any of those received?
No, Mr. President, we have not received any general comment.
Thank you. And then we will be having a board member attending remotely, so I'll make sure to call on that board member so that he has ample opportunity to participate, and all action will be by roll call vote. I think that covers that. And so let's roll call, please.
Good morning, President Powell.
Here.
Vice President Estrada.
Here.
Thank you. Director Aguilar.
Here.
And I'll just note for the record, the first two items are just for the three current board members, and then Director Nelson and Bianco will join us.
Yes.
Right, and just for the record, based on a requalification and recusal that was done a couple of years ago now, in order to have a quorum of the board to take action on the OASIS matter, there was a drawing by lot, and President Powell was requalified to be on the board with the two other members in order to determine and take actions regarding the OASIS project.
Thank you. And so this brings us to item 4, which is relating to the OASIS project. And Jeff Keel, why don't you take this away?
Thank you. Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. We do have two final actions for the OASIS board on the financing of the OASIS project before you. First of which is to approve the preliminary official statement. And then the second is to approve the purchase contract for the Series 2021 certificates of participation, both by the OASIS board and by the CVWD Public Facilities Corporation. The other items being approved will be the authorization of the general manager to execute certain documents for the OASIS project. And then later on in the meeting, under the consent calendar, for the full board, we have an item to adopt a revised comprehensive debt management policy. For the public's benefit, the OASIS project will expand the canal water distribution system to the OASIS area to provide imported Colorado River water to be used for agricultural irrigation purposes in lieu of the pumping of groundwater, and this will benefit the East Whitewater replenishment system. Just a few other items. I'm sorry, Vice President Estrada.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you, Director Estrada.
The sound sounds very muffled.
I'm muffled.
It's really hard to understand.
Can you hear me better now?
I don't think it's you. I think it's you.
Can you hear me better now, sir?
No, I think it's just the system.
Can we ask the other participants? I want to make sure, I need to identify where the issue is. Darren or Doug, how is the audio on your end?
It's very muffled on mine as well. Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
They're muffled here too.
Should we hang up and try again?
So give us a minute. We're going to reconnect the audio line to see if that helps. Yolanda, I'll need you to drop the call, reconnect it. Just hang on for us, those online. We'll be back online. Thank you.
I couldn't understand them. No, we can pick up, you just did the introductory part.
No, we could just ask if there's a vote, if there's a motion and a vote. We just ask if there's a motion and a vote.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, you are in the meeting now. There are 5 participants in the meeting.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Director Estrada, how is our audio coming through?
It sounds a lot better.
There we go. Perfect.
good.
Okay, sounds like it was just a connection issue. Okay.
You also sound a lot better, so
Lot
that was
clearer.
a good move. All right,
Thank
Jeff,
you.
Okay,
take it away.
well, Vice President Estrada, I didn't say anything that you didn't know already, so I'm just going to go on here. So I just want to introduce, on the line is our bond counsel, Doug Brown of Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Routh, and our financial advisor, Darren Hodge from PFM. And the next steps after today, which are significant to note, is that by June 4th, we'll have Standard & Poor's will issue our rating on this financial instrument. And by June 11th, the POS will be posted. And then on June 18th, I'm sorry, bond pricing will take place, and the bond is scheduled to close on June 25th. So with that, Doug Brown, you're on the line. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. So, sir, right before we got started, we had a couple of little questions that came up. And I want to clarify that the changes to the published POS can occur after this meeting, I believe, because we do have an item that Jeff Ray, our general counsel, wants to address with you right now that will likely affect the wording of the POS. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Well, actually, yes, there are 2 things. One is on the agenda today, there is a discussion about the type of auto insurance and the extent of that auto insurance, and that coverage may change in terms of the source of it. And so there was a question about, there is a statement in the POS about current insurance. If that insurance is to change or the coverage is to change, at what point would that at what point should that be changed in the POS before the board signs the official statement?
The preliminary official statement that's before the board today is being approved in substantial form. But section 1 of the resolution specifically authorizes changes that are necessary to make it accurate and complete as of its date. So there could be changes up until the date the preliminary official statement is posted. And as long as they're not material and adverse, those changes can be permitted.
Okay.
And then the other question, Doug, was on the debt management policy, which is part of this resolution and also on the consent calendar. There was some language added there on pages 18 and 19 dealing with the district's general counsel or director of finance will report to the district's board regarding certain obligations which they are obligated to disclose under Rule 15C2-12. And there's statements on the next page as well regarding making reports and disclosures with the assistance of Disclosure Council. Being that the district's general counsel, me, Best Weston Krieger, is not the Disclosure Council, the concern for my firm is that we're not, it's not represented here that we are engaging in Disclosure Council activities. So the request would be just to have it say District Council, or have it simply say the Director of Finance, because it is the district's ultimate legal obligation to make the actual continuing disclosures. Is that?
I mean, there's, that's fine under the federal securities laws. I think as the board heard during their training a couple of months ago, there was an amendment to the Rule 15C212, which requires the disclosure of defaults on financial instruments. And the reason district council's reference is because they're likely going to be the first person who's notified of a default by another party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make that change as well, and that'll just be reflected in the final version. Okay.
I'll also note that in the resolution that we're asking the board to approve right now under determination point 3 on the debt management policy, it states the debt management policy in substantially the form presented at this meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing further, President Powell.
Okay.
I do have a question, Mr. President. So
Yes, please.
Jeff, just to confirm, so the buyer has already been identified?
No.
And so no?
No.
Okay.
No.
So my question was, when the buyer is identified and the final pricing is established that's tied to the rating, so can you just walk me through how that comes
Sure.
together?
Well, I'll ask my expert who's on the line, or Darren Hodge, our financial advisor, but there are a number of steps that occur after today. This is just the final step that the board needs to take in order to effectuate execution of this item. Darren?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. And great question, Director. So the pricing and marketing process will begin when we post the preliminary official statement, which we're currently contemplating for the week of June 7th. Once the preliminary official statement is posted, the underwriter who we have hired for this transaction, Citigroup, will begin reaching out and marketing our bonds to investors. And so we're not hoping for one single investor, we're hoping for a lot of investors in the bonds. And that will lead us to pricing, which is currently scheduled for June 15th. And on the date of June 15th, we will take offers or orders for the bonds. And at the end of that day, we will sign the bond purchase agreement, which is in front of you today. And at that point, the bonds will be sold, but they will be not effective until it's closed the week after on June 23rd. Director, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I'm sorry. So when does the rating get plugged in?
So we should be receiving the rating next week. And so once that is effective, we will be posting that onto the preliminary official statement so that investors are aware of what the rating will be on the bonds.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Appreciate it.
We really do want the rating before we post.
We do, and I am repeating what I've said before, but we've been actually going through a two-stage process with Standard & Poor's. We did a preliminary indicative rating, which was confidential even to this point. And so Standard & Poor's has been going through all of our financials for months. And this is just kind of the final stage where there's going to be a final review process on their part. That's why they should fairly quickly be able to finalize their formal rating for us.
Good. All right. Do we have a motion to approve this item 3? I'm sorry, item 4. Item 4.
I'll make the motion to approve item 4, resolution 2021-14.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, good.
And I'm sorry, just for the record, Mr. President, just to be sure, if there's any public comment on this item.
This would be a time for public comment.
Only because we haven't had the general public comment yet.
Understood. But I don't know that we have anybody in the room or online that would be able to do that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
for the
see
record.
anybody
Thanks.
online as well.
Okay. Unless staff would like to make public comment, I guess that's possible. So we have a motion and a second, and is there any other comment or question before we do a roll call vote?
Is this the last time that we're getting together as a group for this project, or is this the last time?
Well, the next item will be your last time as the
Well,
Oasis
it won't
Board.
be it'll be the last item before we actually do the bond sale, but during the course of construction, there could be subsequent meetings, change conditions, things we need to do to progress the construction contract or clarify the requirements. So I can't guarantee that the next item will be the last.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Fair question. All right, roll call vote, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
Director Aguilar.
Aye.
Thank you.
So that passed 3-0. At this time, the board will recess and convene as the Public Facilities Corporation. And before that corporation, we have item 5 on the agenda, which is to approve resolution PFC 2021-02. Jeff.
I don't have anything else to add. This has not changed since the item was presented to the board previously.
Right.
But do we want to maybe discuss the difference between?
So the reason we need to have this action in the Public Facilities Corporation instead of the board is what, Jeff?
Doug, would you like to go through that again? Thank you.
Sure, yeah, the Public Facilities Corporation is actually a party to the purchase contract that Jeff mentioned earlier. So when the bonds are priced, Citigroup will sign the purchase contract with the district and the financing corporation. So that's the only reason we have this resolution before you today, is to approve that purchase contract on behalf of the financing corporation.
Right, but it is common practice for municipal government, special districts to have, I don't want to call it a shadow organization, but a facilities corporation that supports the sale of public bonds and offerings. This is not unique to CVWD.
Right.
And I don't know technically how to explain why you need a facilities corporation board separate from the district's governing board. And that may be what President Powell was actually.
Yeah, I'm familiar with, we've had this corporation for a long time because we actually had some bonds, assessment districts a long time ago. Yeah. One of them just wound up. But,
we need to bring back those assessment districts.
Okay. Well, we have a perfect Public Facilities Corporation ready to go then.
Well, that's why we have it.
Okay. I think we're okay with the question then. So, is there a motion to approve item 5?
Make a motion?
Second?
There's a motion and a second, and roll call, please.
President Powell,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Aye.
and Director Aguilar.
Aye.
Okay, so that passed 3-0. And so at this time, we will adjourn the Public Facilities Corporation and reconvene as the Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors.
Jeff, could you do me a favor and ask Director Nelson to join us, please?
They're both here.
I
That's
gotta
what you
check to
think?
make sure the door is closed.
Good morning. Yeah, it's not much longer. You take lots of sips of water and that'd be a good excuse to have it down. Good. Well, so we are in session now as the Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors. We have all four members here and Vice President Estrada on the remote connection. Do we have any additions, deletions, or adjustments to today's agenda?
No, sir, none have come to my attention.
Nor mine. Again, public comment. Do we have anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? No. Consent calendar, items 8A through J. I would request that we pull item F as in Frank.
I'd move the balance of the consent calendar.
Second?
Jeff, do we need to pull the debt management policy to make?
Right, thank you. We did make a comment earlier about the debt management policy being in draft and substantially complete. And we noted for the record then, and it's probably a good idea now, that we'll make some minor changes to the debt management policy to make it clear that it's not the district's general counsel, but is the district's counsel with the director of finance who will make ongoing disclosures. That's a minor change that can be made, and we've discussed that with the bond counsel. So thank you, Jeff.
Okay, I'm in my motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item F and H that we'll pull.
And, okay. We can actually, if you wish, Director Nelson, we can approve H with the comment that I just made.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, then just F.
Thank you.
So the original motion, in motion and second stand. Good. All in favor, say, or no, I'm sorry, roll call vote.
President Powell.
Aye.
Vice President Estrada.
Aye.
Director Bianco.
Aye.
Director Aguilar.
Aye.
And Director Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good. You know, on F, I don't know who would be presenting F, but it just,
You got him at the table.
it caught, oh, hi, Armando. It caught my eye, Armando. You know, we see in the general manager's report every month that we spend, what is it, about 17 million a year on power. We have two providers and they're each about the same, you know, about half each.
Right.
And one's IID, the other one's Southern California Edison. And so we have this consultant that we pay money to relative to the 17 million. It's a small amount, but we pay them money to look at these bills and make sure they're accurate. And I didn't see anything in the report that says, you know, how are they doing? Are they finding things, or are they saving us money? And then the question that I would have is, you know, how do they stack up? Is who's more accurate, Edison or IID? You know, I mean, are we finding more errors in Edison or in IID? That's kind of my question.
So we don't have the data to develop IID versus SCE. For the most general, quick overview, high level, pretty much the bills are coming in and they're good. There's no regular anomalies. But what we will love to do as part of this request is to really establish a benchmark for the highest producing bills, the highest producing accounts. We want to be able to measure ourselves according to the usage. And then, because those are the most significant electrical bills, want to be able to recalculate that electrical invoice to make sure that the most appropriate rate is being achieved. That's a deep dive, that's a deep scrub. In the past, we have not done that. And so this provides us a baseline so that we can find those anomalies and those errors here going forward.
So are you talking about, you know, time of use rates where you're going to use the lower rate as much as possible?
we're really going to try to do this data. At the end of the day, what is this about? It's about developing that benchmark for the highest use bills so that we can look at ourselves, measure against ourselves to make sure that the equipment that is being turned on at the most appropriate time, but then also to make sure that, you're being charged with the best available rate structure that SCE and ID can have. And this data will help us get there.
All right, I guess I'd like to know, I'd like to see more of a scorecard on this. Can they do that as part of the work they're doing? I mean, if we're hiring them to audit our bills,
Yeah, absolutely.
then we should know what kind of results they're generating, right?
Yeah, and we can do it within the scope of work that we have now. We can adjust and keep a close scorecard so that we can say, who's doing better at this, producing these accurate electrical bills.
Yeah, and if we're giving $170,000 to these guys, is it worth it? Yeah. Right? I mean, I just didn't see any of that in the item.
Yeah, I think the data mining is going to be a powerful tool for us to really optimize operations, but then really optimize the rates that Southern California Edison ID is charging us. And it will be a very good litmus test to make sure that those rates are appropriate.
Yeah, I understand. They should have been doing this. I mean, there's already a scope of work we've already hired them to do, so I'm a little surprised that there's no report or result from the work they've already done.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? All right, so we'll expect that. If we approve this, we'll expect that.
Yes, we can deliver. We can deliver.
So the original contract was for $100,000?
The original contract for cost control associates was roughly about $60,000.
$60,000, okay, for the initial review, which we still have 18 months left remaining.
Right.
Okay.
And just to put it in perspective, as Mr. Powell said, yes, we process bills on $17 million average. And on two average, that's about 16.2 million. And this fee, it comes out to about 0.1%. So it's a very low dollar value for the service that they're doing to scrub. All we're asking is just to do a deeper scrub so that we have appropriate and correct electrical invoices.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Exhibit 1 to Task Order 1, it says that adding the $70,000, you're not going to exceed 150. So
right.
I'm guessing must have been 80 already in the agreement, right? I mean, 70 plus 80 is 150.
So I understand it's not very much, it's 0.01, but we want to get value for whatever money we're spending. So hopefully we'll see something like.
Is this urgent? Can they generate some kind of information for us before we approve this item?
They can. I'm sure we can ask them to review. Once again, we're looking for these anomalies. But the data they have now, if we request them, what is the scorecard between both? I'm pretty sure the data is going to come back and say, yeah, they're both about the same. There's not, except for this one exception bill that we got from ID. It hasn't been a regular occurrence that we see. But again, it's all about us measuring and establishing that one baseline.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I'll tell you, my position on it is, we've already paid them under an existing contract. Why don't they tell us how they're doing before we approve more money for them? Right? I'd like to see that. I know it's not a huge dollar amount, but it's still something.
Is there a possibility that we can provide that information once we get this approved and provide that information so we can...
What's the urgency? I don't understand.
Yeah, but it's up to the board's discretion. You know, I actually raised this question to Jim in advance of the meeting and for similar concerns. And I would, for me, I mean, I recognize it's a small investment relative to the prospective outcome. I get that point. But personally, I would at some point, and perhaps we should do this first, just to hear from them. Because I think hearing them speak directly to, I think the process and the product to me would make this an easier decision.
Okay. Yeah, bring it back.
We can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's a huge urgency. I mean, unless they're onto some big scandal, you know. I mean, it didn't say that in there, so I don't know.
No, there's no big scandal here.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. All right, so we're going to table 8F. You can bring it back.
Okay, thank you.
With consultant, some input from the consultant. On to item 10. Thanks, Armando. We have 2 anniversaries and 2 retirements. Alvaro Sandoval with 20 years of service and Eric Morales with 20 years of service. And then the 2 retirements, Tim Hoffman with Equipment Operator 2 with 31 years, and Thomas Rice, Financial Analyst 3. Hard to believe, it's already been 10 years. Actually, it's kind of hard to believe it's only been 10 years. It seems like he's been here longer.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
At the beginning of time, it seems like.
Anyways, congratulations to all of them. I don't think they're not here, right?
No, they're not here.
Thomas is still here?
No, Thomas has left the building.
Oh, he left. Is he
Yes.
retiring?
Yes.
Well, I really like Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. Left in March, really? Yeah.
His last workday was in April, I think, early April. He built a house out in Arizona. Prescott Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I know a lot of people moving there.
I doubt he's watching.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're wake of the boat as far as he's concerned.
Anyways, congratulations to all of them. I wish them well. Yeah. Informational reports 11A. We did not have anything on the packet for written communications. 11B. Katie's going to give us a preview, kind of, right, of our water shortage contingency plan update. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, members of the board. And yes, this is a bit of a preview of the water shortage contingency plan. You're going to be asked to approve this plan in June, and because there are tight deadlines with the entire plan, I wanted to take a minute to pull the water shortage contingency plan out separately so that you have an opportunity to give us some feedback on it if you have any. So just as way of background, urban water management plans are required by the state of California. They're required every 5 years. The state has run behind in issuing their guidelines more than once, which is why this is a 2021 plan and not a 2020 plan. It used to be 2005, 10, 15, 20, but unfortunately that is no longer the case. But the intent of the plan is really to focus on urban use. So you'll see in here we've got some things about golf courses and agriculture, but you know, we're not serving those customers with urban water, so while they need to be included, it's not necessarily applicable. But this is an urban water plan, forecasting supply and demand, assessing reliability of our urban supplies, and encouraging efficiency. So there's new requirements this year. We have to do a 5-year drought risk assessment. That's something that comes out of the governor's long-term conservation regulations. There's now a seismic risk assessment, which frankly we had already been doing, so not a big change there. Some changes to the water shortage contingency plan, which is what, of course, the bulk of this presentation will be on. Coordination with SGMA, climate change, and then a demonstration of reduction in Delta reliance. Again, I'll be focusing on the water shortage contingency plan here. For the first time, we're actually doing our urban water management plan as a regional plan. So we're working with the other urban agencies. And there were a lot of reasons for this. Cost savings was a big one, But a lot of it had to do with aligning our water management plans and this specific shortage plan. As you know, we're working together on Sigma. We work together on the integrated plan. It just sort of made sense that this plan become regional as well. And it did result in cost savings.
So is the idea that we'll all have the same conservation rules?
Yeah, you're getting ahead of me, but that's exactly what we're trying to do.
So that when you do a public service announcement, it'll apply to everyone.
Yeah, and one of the big problems we had in the previous drought, you might recall, is, we would have a rule like, okay, you can use a pressure washer on your sidewalk, but in Indio you couldn't. And, and so it created a lot of confusion. And so really the whole effort here was to try to get all these things the same. So for example, there might be something that was in our level 3, but in Desert Water Agency's level 2. And so we really spent a lot of time lining these things up, which is why you're going to see changes to what we've had in place in the past.
Katie, the only problem, and maybe it's not a problem, I'm just asking you, is that the Desert Water Agency doesn't have any canal water.
Right. And this does not apply.
They don't have any agriculture canal water.
Right. And this does not apply to canal water.
No, I understand. But part of our plan includes the use of agricultural water to recharge the aquifer. And so when we include Desert Water Agency, I don't know, I'm just thinking ahead.
I totally understand, and all of these agencies that are listed here have different sources of supply and different uses. This plan, the Urban Water Management Plan and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan are exclusive to domestic supply, to urban supply. So again, like I said, I'll talk about golf again. There's no recharge in here. There's no, for us, unless a golf course is using a domestic meter, which ours do not, this would not apply to them. Conversely, in Desert Water Agency's service area, there is a golf course that is supplied through domestic water. This would apply to them.
Is that O'Donnell?
It is. Poor O'Donnell. If you remember poor O'Donnell during the drought, it was
But what
bad
I'm trying to
times.
say is that their rules may look a lot more strict than our rules would be, and that because they don't have the water source coming in that we do.
Okay, I think maybe I can get to that when I talk about the shortage levels and how we get there. Let me get there.
Okay.
Okay, and if not, we can keep talking.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so I went through that. Another change to the Urban Water Management Plan that I wanted to bring up, because this is pretty familiar to us, is this new supply and demand assessment. If you recall, during the previous drought, 2014 through 16, CVWD sort of led the charge with a couple of other water agencies from Southern California and went to the state and said, stop giving us regulations based on demand. You have to incorporate an assessment of our supply as well. And it was successful, which is how we got rid of that 36% mandate, but now it's part of the plan every year, which is fine. It's a formula that we'll put together every year, but it will come to the board every year in May. So in May, we will come to you and tell you we expect a shortage or we don't, and then you'll have the opportunity to implement levels as needed. So that'll be a new process that we haven't done before.
Because of your efforts, that's why our county is not included on the governor's.
They haven't come out and said that, but I do think that that's a huge component to it.
Yeah, that they're allowing every water district to have their to be separate instead of the way the last administration did it, where they said the whole state.
Right, right. We really advocated for there to be an assessment like this as a part of the long-term plan, and I'm really happy it's in there because I do think we're seeing the results of it now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that'll be a new change that's coming your way annually after the plan is adopted. So the water shortage contingency plan is simply a plan. I want to be really clear about that. It's not an ironclad agreement that you will absolutely do this. So for example, if we end up in a shortage level 3 and there's an item on level 3 that's just not a good idea at the time, you're not required to do it. It's simply a plan, but it is a plan that we wanted to have aligned with the other water agencies around the valley. The plan can stand alone. It can be changed without having to change the whole urban water management plan, but it will be adopted as part of the plan. I'm sorry, as part of the urban water management plan. When they're both called plan, it's a little tricky. But a couple of things that we did outline in here were drought, earthquake, and infrastructure failure. The intent of a water shortage contingency plan is a response if we're unable to serve water to our customers. So when we originally had a water shortage contingency plan, it was written in January of 1992, and it truthfully was really focused on an earthquake, because that does seem like the more likely scenario where we would end up not able to serve our customers. After that plan was adopted, we just kept amending it. And if you recall, and it was me doing it during the 2015, I was here all the time amending it. So what we're trying to do here is just scrap all of it. The previous plan, all the amendments, all the ordinances that went into place during that time, we're going to get rid of all of them. And we're just going to have this new water shortage contingency plan to replace everything. So that's our intent going forward. Again, this is just part of the urban water management plan changes, which I've already gone over all that. So one of the first changes to the plan that you'll see, and this was a change that we made across the Coachella Valley, but also got made statewide, is we adopted standardized shortage levels. So previously, some agencies had like 3 levels, some had 6, some had 2. So this is the state's guidance, which we also participated in the discussions of when the state was developing it. We think this is appropriate, and the other water agencies have also agreed that this is appropriate. So you'll see here, I'll just use the first one. You know, shortage level 1 means we're basically at normal conditions up to a 10% shortage. And then there are level 1 actions, which I'll go over in a minute, that correspond with that level of shortage. So when you go into level 6, you can see they're a lot more extreme, because at that point we would be unable to meet our demands by at least 50%.
What constitutes a shortage?
So inability to meet the demands of our customers. So again, we're going to do that supply and demand assessment every year. We're going to bring it to you in May, and we're going to say, here's the projected demands of our customers for the next 12 months. Can we meet those demands or not? And if the answer is we cannot, is it by 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever the case may be? So
besides an earthquake, what would make us go into any one of those percentages?
A declaration that had state requirements.
But that doesn't mean that we have a shortage.
Right.
Which is what we hope to avoid.
Which is what we're hoping to avoid by doing this shortage plan in May. The intent is that we are going to have some local control by doing it this way. I can't say that a governor will never do this again, because we can't say that. Who knows what will happen? But the intent is that by developing these plans and conducting annual assessments, that we don't have statewide one-size-fits-all approaches again.
I got it. So we have a plan to manage it.
Correct. We have a plan that meets the state guidelines, that's been accepted regionally, that has stakeholder involvement, that we're supplying to them on a consistent basis to avoid that ever happening again.
Okay.
Again, you never know what a governor will do. Right?
Yeah, I think the water balance and overdraft could be an obvious trigger, but then how do you define what that level is? Because you really shouldn't look at this as a 1-year thing. So
right. So and that's a really important distinction. I'm glad you just said that, because there's a difference between the water shortage contingency plan is an emergency plan. It is not a long-term water management program. Mm-hmm. This is if we cannot meet the demands in the next 12 months. So we have long-term plans. We have good long-term plans for what happens if we do end up in a state of overdraft. How do we acquire new supplies? What is our long-term management strategy? This plan is this is an emergency. In the event, and earthquake's the easy example, right? If there was an earthquake, cut off our supply, we didn't have wells functioning anymore, we couldn't pump enough water to supply the demand of our customers, then this makes a lot of sense, right? If our capacity is reduced, our infrastructure is affected, then we start saying, okay, no more outdoor watering, no more, because we're trying to conserve what we've got in our reservoirs or whatever the case may be.
I'm not poking holes in it, I'm just trying to understand it.
No, it's absolutely.
Okay.
This is why I wanted to have the conversation as an informational item, so we could talk through all of the changes, because there are many, and it is different. It's a different approach than there has been in the past because of the long-term conservation regulations.
So these levels here are adopted by the State Department of Water Resources?
These are the State Department of Water Resources recommendations for levels. You can adopt them different locally. We thought that these were pretty logical, and the other 5 agencies agreed to them, so we went with this. This is, I think we had 5 levels. I think we just went to over 50% in number 5, so it's not a big change from ours.
So this is the same agency that we went to in 2014 or 15 that were trying to get us to reduce by 36% across the board, right? Everything.
Yeah.
So it's the same guys, and they're now have different direction, and so this is going to give us the local control rather than the statewide mandate.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the intent, absolutely the intent. And I will say, you know, CVWD has been at the table for all of this. You know, this had a huge impact on our district. Since the governor started drafting the long-term framework, we have been there advocating for the fact that this district is in a different situation than maybe someone in Northern California who's relying on surface water.
So then we would not expect to see the governor come out and make a proclamation or declaration like Governor Brown did and say 25% across the board.
Right.
What we would likely see is the state is declaring that the local agencies go to their water supply contingency plans and implement their conservation level.
That is what I would expect.
Okay.
I will say though, just not to be pessimistic, but I'm a little concerned about what's happening right now. Because these plans haven't been submitted yet, they haven't been approved, they haven't moved forward. We're in this little gray area right now where
I move approval.
Right, exactly. So I'm hoping that we get,
That's a joke, by the
we hang on long enough to get all of these submitted to the state, and the state has them all, and then there's that moving forward.
Okay.
Intention.
Okay, just a couple other things before I get into the demand response actions. There's a couple other requirements that were in here, like exchanges and new recycled water. Again, these don't make a lot of sense for CVWD because it's not like we can just go out and get a new supply really quickly and easily, as you all know and are well aware of. But we did write in there some information about our emergency connections with other agencies in the event that maybe one of the local agencies has a problem, we can connect to them. Of course, we also encourage new recycled water connections as a strategy, but not a lot in the supply augmentation actions, but it was a requirement. Okay. So I did want to share that we have met with stakeholders. We have had a number of stakeholder meetings, but we had one really specific to this plan. It was really well attended. I think we had 40 community members come participate in this, which was really nice. And this was some of the feedback that they provided us. You know, the first thing, which I think this board also agrees with, is that we don't want to put something across the board, same percentage reduction to all customers, because we do have customers who've already taken proactive steps. A lot of feedback about working with HOAs to make sure that they can help us implement and help us communicate, which is really helpful. A lot of positive comments about tiered rates. And of course, I think, you know, considering the audience, the people who were participating in this meeting are probably those who are good conservers, so they really like the tiered rate structure. And then, you know, encouragement to continue to have incentives and a really broad communications program in the event that these things need to be implemented. Okay, so I'll go through these quickly, but I do want to say this is the area I'd really like feedback. So if there's an item on this that you don't like or you want to see done differently, I can take it back to the other agencies in the region and talk about making a change. But let's go through them and see what your feedback is. So this is level 1. This is normal conditions. And I think a lot of these things are kind of, you know, common sense things that we implement now. First, we don't want to have any runoff. You know, we're looking for runoff. We still do have water waste patrols here at CVWD that look for runoff and try and alert customers. And I will say, our water waste patrol work right now is not finding anyone. It's purely educational. So we look for situations like these, get in touch with the homeowner, offer them rebates and programs that might help, educate them on the needs to improve these things. But we're going to continue to do that even under normal conditions. The second one there, you know, fountains and decorative water features need to be recirculating. I think you'd be hard pressed to find one that isn't right now. That's generally how they're built. Applying water to driveways, sidewalks, hardscape that doesn't address an immediate health or safety need or isn't using a pressure washer or water broom is not permitted. Now, just to be clear, health and safety is a pretty broad spectrum, right? So a restaurant that needs to clean out their patio is welcome to do so. If someone thinks they have a trip and fall hazard, That's a health and safety issue. So, we're pretty flexible about this, but it's more of an encouragement to not do it without a spray pressure washer or something along those lines.
I've always thought of bird poop as
Health and safety.
you kind of want to get that out
Yeah.
of certain areas, and it's hard to do it with a broom.
Right, absolutely.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It provides enough flexibility. I mean, the problem I've had with it is, in backyards, you can blow all you want, and after you blow it, you still have this film of dirt, and nobody likes that.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
We-
so if you can coordinate your irrigation cycles and hose all that off, and then turn your irrigation off for a day, then you're kind of replacing the irrigation.
The water, yeah, exactly. So, okay, spray irrigation after rainfall is prohibited. Again, that's a common sense thing, and of course, our smart irrigation controllers will do that for you. If you're washing down a vehicle or anything else, we want you to have a shutoff nozzle on your hose. We give those away for free, so anybody who needs one can come get one. Broken sprinklers should be repaired within 5 days of notification. And draining and refilling of pools is discouraged unless necessary for health and safety or leak repair. Again, not prohibited, but discouraged. We don't want people just draining and filling without, a good reason to do so. Hotels will provide guests the option of choosing not to have laundry done every day. Most hotels are doing this already. Again, we already discourage overseating, and we already provide rebates, surveys and audits, and rebates on plumbing fixtures. So these, again, normal conditions. These are things that we would keep into place now, and we really focus on education on these items. So when we move into level 2, which would in fact be a shortage of up to 20%, we start to put some more restrictive items into place. So we would prohibit watering during daylight hours. Encourage the use of non-potable if it's available. We know that's not always the case. We'd be actively encouraging or actively discouraging overseeding and asking that restaurants only serve water upon request.
On the item 1, on the daylight hours,
It's going to be very difficult here in the summer.
yeah, I mean, if you're gonna check your systems, I mean, shouldn't there be something, you gotta check your system for leaks and so forth, and plugs, and it just seems like.
Yeah.
That one may be a little difficult in the summertime here.
Okay. So we.
I mean, when it's 110 plus, the daylight.
I totally get that, like the time of use, like, in when it's 110, right? But if it's in the morning, you're checking the system and you're running through it, it just seems like, a prohibition, everybody's gonna rat their neighbor out, and if they're just out checking their system, it just seems like.
What's going to happen is no one's going to follow it.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so the adding that, if you're checking your system is a very easy one for us to add. I will say another concern I have about this is HOAs that have many, many, many valves. It takes a really long time to run through. So maybe we just soften this one, for extenuating circumstances, or especially high temperatures.
Can we look at a certain time of day where the evapotranspiration is high?
So we started with that as a region. We started with 6 a.m., 6 p.m., and we worked our way around those. And the reason we didn't go with that is because of daylight savings. And sometimes, if it's dark at 4:30, it's really hard to get all your irrigation in. So that's why we went with daylight hours instead. But I don't have a concern about adding some language in here that says that if you're checking your system or there are unusually high temperatures,
And what's daylight? I mean, when the sun goes behind the mountain, it's still light out.
And is it daylight in the Lake Uinta Cove or in Desert Hot
Yeah,
Springs?
is that
Right.
considered daylight? I mean, I think once that sun goes behind the mountain, that should be.
You're right though, because the sun in the summertime, it's dark at 8 o'clock and the sun rises at 5:30.
Right.
So it's not dark very often, and you're right, getting all that on, and a lot of things are gonna die when it's 115 without water.
I don't think people will follow it. I don't like it.
I just don't want it to be where the neighbors, everybody's pointing the finger.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll look at some softening language for this one.
And if I may, just for briefly, Katie, after level 1, if you're going to move into level 2 or up, each agency is going to come to their board to get authorization
Yes.
to move to those other levels and then what to impose in those levels. So we don't have to bind ourselves now to daylight savings time or something like that.
That's a good point, and I didn't say that, thank you, Jeff. So in the event that we did need to move into level 2 or 3 or 4, we would not do that automatically. Even though you will have approved a plan, we will still come to you with an action asking you to move us into one of these levels. So just thank you for that clarification.
And at that point, you could decide that 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4 of these should apply in this stage or not.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So if it was, January, you might be okay with it the way it is. But if it was July, you might want to adjust it. Okay.
Katie, I do have a question. So I'm interested in the approach where all the water agencies speak with one voice, because I think that could be a huge area. In fact, I think already one of the water agencies has come out with a statement regarding conservation, and I was kind of surprised to see that. So what is the, is everybody on board with this idea of let's speak with one voice? Because I see that as a potential conflict.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think, I don't want to speak for another water agency, but I think it's fair to say that we're still in that weird gray area that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So we're really working hard on this plan being unified. But right now, without this plan being in place yet, I think there is still some difference of opinion. So the intent is to get this plan developed where we're all on the same page, where we have the same structure and we have the same levels so that we can, of course, speak as one voice. Whereas right now, even though this is in the works, we do have some differences in our water waste ordinances, in our conservation programs, and in our water waste regulations.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work, yes, that's a great way to say it. Okay, so again, I'll look at some softening language on that. Okay, so actively discouraging overseeding, restaurants only serving water upon request. And again, at this point, we're in a shortage. So those are things we would move into. And again, I want to, before I say this first one, I want to say you would always have the option to not do this. But we're going to put in the plan that we would reduce outdoor water budgets by 10% and then implement drought rates. We wanted to have this in our plan so that it's part of our existing structure should we need to implement it. When the time comes, if the time ever comes and we hit a 20% shortage and you don't feel that that's appropriate, we can always move into level 2 without activating any of those bullet points. Expanding the public information campaign, of course, increased water patrols, and then reducing in our own operations, reducing flushing, of course, only a little at a level that would be safe for our operations. If we moved into level 3, we would go down to 3-day-a-week watering. If you recall, we did this during the shortage last time. We're looking at Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as being those days. It doesn't mean that that's what they would have to be, but if we did move into this situation, staff from all of the agencies would be really encouraging our boards to adopt the same days. A huge problem last time was that it was different days for different agencies. It was very, very confusing for our customers. We would, of course, allow drip and subterranean irrigation to continue 7 days a week. Commercial nurseries would be asked to water on alternate days and during non-daylight hours. And then again, this has golf course in here, but our golf courses are not using this supply. Some are, ours are not. But any decorative ponds should not be refilled.
So that's just if you're using domestic
water. Right.
Okay.
No initial filling of swimming pools or landscape. Again, this would be if we couldn't meet 30% of our demand. No refilling unless there was a health and safety need or a leak repair. Encouraging those HOA cities and counties to stop enforcing their code enforcement for brown lawns. That's something that happened during the last drought, and it was actually kind of controversial. Some HOAs really wanted to enforce their landscape requirements. They really did not want people having brown lawns, and then the state came in and told them that they could not do that. So
yeah, this first one, we have a pretty big industry out here of swimming pool construction. I'm not comfortable shutting that industry down during this time. I mean, they need to fill the pool, otherwise they're not going to get paid, right?
Right. And I just do want to remind you, we're talking about a 30% shortage, right? So in an event that we could not meet our demands by 30%, which is significant, but I don't want to say that's unlikely because it did happen, right? Because of a political decision. But this, I mean, in my mind, this would be a pretty serious situation if it was realistically us unable to meet those demands. So again, you know, we can take it out, we can soften it, but you always have the option of not doing it when you'd be asked to move to level 3. So do you want to remove it?
I would remove it. I mean, you know, you're going to pick and choose which businesses get to continue to operate. I don't like that at all.
Okay.
That's basically saying you couldn't build a home with a pool.
Well, you can't fill the pool.
Well, then why would you wouldn't put one in?
Right, I understand. Yeah, I mean.
Oh, you'd build it and leave it empty.
Yeah, you're 3/4 of the way through building a house and you finish it, and the day before you finish it, we declare this emergency.
I mean, you know, if they're putting in traditional plaster in a pool, that has to be wet. You can't just let it sit there.
Okay.
I think it's unreasonable.
Okay. Okay. And then commercial car washes must use recycled water. Again, this is already the case, so I don't think we'll have much trouble with that.
So can I ask a quick question? So I raised this in a previous discussion about cannabis uses. So there are already existing very large cannabis commercial uses and anticipated millions of square feet if you look up in Desert Hot Springs and other areas. So, do they, what is their water source? And how does that play into this? And
Domestic water.
Yeah, so if that's the thing. If they were using domestic water, then they're going to be subject to these requirements. So, you know, I don't know what the Desert Hot Springs facilities are using, but you know, a dispensary on Perez Road would be subject to
so they
this.
would be subject to this? Okay.
I would suspect most of their operations are drip irrigation.
Yeah, that's true too. So if
They
they're,
irrigate at night.
yeah,
Well, it's drip, so they can do it.
they can, if you're using drip or subterranean, you can irrigate 7 days a week.
But the last page, if we're at 30% shortage, it's allowed
During non-daylight, you're right.
Well, it's indoors, so there is no indoor watering.
Right. And yeah, that's true. And, you know, this is one of those situations where enforcement's going to be difficult to handle with those cannabis industries as well because they are indoors. It won't be the same as like when we are able to drive past something and see their sprinklers going.
Good.
So,
Okay.
okay. So I think it was here. I was really on the fence about this one. The use of misting systems is prohibited. Misting systems don't use a great deal of water, but there is a public perception issue there, so I'd be open to any thoughts on that.
Why can't you just move the misting systems prohibited to the 50%?
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I will say this was an important one to some of our partners, but I think I could probably argue for it to be further down the line. Okay.
Especially after COVID, where they're forced to eat outside.
Right.
You know, I mean.
That would
I
show.
know, imagine if we had these both happening at once. Okay, spray irrigation of medians and parkways is prohibited. Also not a huge issue in our service area. A lot of our medians have moved away from spray irrigation as it is. You don't see a whole lot of spray irrigation in medians, but it would be prohibited under a 30% shortage. Strengthening our messaging, implementing additional targeted water audits. This is something that we already do. And then expanded rebate programs. Okay, so in level 4, now we're getting more serious, right? If we are unable to meet our water demands by 40%, landscapes may not be watered unless they're using drip or subterranean irrigation. Moratorium on new landscaping, implementing that drought rate surcharge. We wouldn't, some agencies, I should mention this, some agencies, of course, don't have tiered rates, so they wouldn't move into, and they don't have water budgets. So at this point, they would simply just be introducing a drought surcharge, which has nothing to do with our drought
So
rates.
would we then at this point be implementing a drought on our tiered rates? Would we be implementing a surcharge?
I think I have a bullet on it. Yes.
Yeah,
So here we're looking at, we have it in there as a level 2 item that we already have started looking at those budgets. And again, I want to be clear, in the event it happens, you have the choice to implement these as they are or to make a change to them. But yes, at this point, we'd be looking at a 40% shortage. I think we really would need to be looking at reducing the water budgets.
Well, that's not reducing it. That's saying nobody can water anything at all. Like everything's going to die unless you have drip.
Let me go back. The first bullet.
Yeah, I mean, that's everything is going to die unless you have drip.
So drip is it a catch-all? I mean, that would include soaker tubing, and would it include micro sprinklers or, those little emitters that put out a little spray pad?
Yeah, like a bubbler. Yeah, I mean, this would include, maybe.
How about just grass? How about you just say grass?
What about changing this to say just spray heads? That spray head irrigation is prohibited, because that would then allow for soaker tubes, bubblers, drips, subterranean.
There's all these different things you can buy for your drip system that do different things. And some of them, you might argue, is a micro spray or something.
Right. How would you feel about that? Just saying that instead of saying landscapes may not be watered, we'll cut the except part and say with spray irrigation.
How about just grass? You can't water your grass because you can't do it with drip.
Turf.
It's just turf.
But I do want to.
You can't do turf.
I do want to allow
trees
for
and everything. If they're on sprayers, a lot of them are on sprayers like that, and shrubs are on those kind of misting micro sprayers that they can all be sprayed. And then there are people who still have pop-up sprinklers for shrubs.
I do want to allow people to water their grass if they're using a subterranean system.
What is a subterranean system?
So it's
Well,
tubing.
if you put turf there, you could put turf may not be water except for drip irrigation or subterranean water.
Okay, so if we just change.
What's tubing for grass?
So it's like a tubing that goes, it's buried underground, it has little holes in it.
I have some of that.
Yeah,
For grass.
Yeah, I have some turf it's Carapia, but it's a grass and it's got subterranean emitters on.
Yeah. You can do it.
So we would, that's not something I would be looking to restrict. So, but I like that suggestion. Maybe it just says turf may not be watered except where drip irrigation or subterranean water systems are used.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moratorium on new landscaping. I mean, they've already got the thumb screws down pretty tight on new landscaping?
We can define that. We can say that if, because keep in mind, we have a landscape ordinance, so we can say that we just won't approve any plans.
But when you're building a new house now, the landscaping uses such low amount of water.
Right.
How can we, I don't agree with that.
Doesn't it use more when you're establishing it?
It does use more when you're establishing it.
Yeah, when you're establishing it, but would you expect people to buy a new house with no landscaping?
I just do want to remind you, we're 40% shortage here,
Well, I
right? So this is a
understand.
pretty serious situation.
I know,
but seriously, all right, so-
Okay.
36 was the number, so we're getting close.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to just delete that one?
I think again, they're businesses that's all they do is landscaping.
How about moratorium on new lands for,
They all have other.
but just make it so that you can still continue to build homes.
Oh, you can build homes. You just couldn't put landscaping in with them.
Okay, so why don't we make it to where you couldn't redo your existing landscaping?
Go to Muller's Garden
Okay.
Center.
Yeah, but what if you wanted to redo it to drought tolerant? Yeah.
Yeah, we would
I
allow
see what
that.
you're trying to do. But,
Yeah.
And there's not going to be any new landscaping that's all turf, right? Because they have to meet the landscape ordinance as it is.
And then the
Yeah,
construction.
I mean, there's already no spray heads on the front of the house.
Right, right. Okay. I mean, if that's the will of the board, I can just delete that one.
I would. I mean, I'd send that one to the DVBA and see what they say.
And the construction meters, we don't get any water for construction meters, I mean, don't we?
Break out our AR-15.
Yeah, so that's another big one, right?
That stops all development, right?
So we could change that one to say that only, well, I don't know if we could change that one. I'd need to find out if it's available, but if we could only make it non-potable, I don't know that that's an option, actually.
Some of that's dust control.
Right.
So it's gonna,
Yeah, and we do have some language in here, I should mention too, that if you have to do it to meet a different regulation, that, you know, and dust control is the easy example. If you are required by AQMD to do dust control, then that would supersede this.
Yeah.
Which you would be, I guess.
I guess what I'm saying is you know, how I'd like to look at this, because you don't know, the governor might force us to 40%.
That's true. That's true.
Is just, I mean, if it's going to shut down businesses, we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. And I mean, the building industry has had a hard enough time. I mean, for us to do these things to them, I don't know. You know, I also think for us, we still do have this long-term water management plan where I don't think we would force ourselves into a 40% level, but somebody else might force us.
And I think that's why this plan's so hard to develop, right? Because when I sit down and I think about if we really couldn't meet demands, then these things make a lot of sense. I mean, if we truly could not deliver this water to our customers, then it makes sense to implement these things.
But, you know, the idea that the water level in the aquifer is going to drop below our well, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and so that's why, and again, I always think there's no way this will happen, but then it happened. So it's just, that's just wrong.
Because it was people in Sacramento that didn't understand.
Right, right. But if you think about it from the sense of, let's step back and say, it's not a drought, it's an earthquake, right? An earthquake destroys a whole bunch of our infrastructure and makes it so that our pumping capacity is way down, our infrastructure, our system is damaged. We can't deliver water to 40% of our customers. Does it make sense then to implement these things?
Right.
And that's where I tried to sit, because it doesn't seem realistic to me that we'd end up in a place where we hit 40%, but it has happened because of a political decision. So it's a little bit of a tough planning strategy. Okay, so I'm changing the top one and deleting the second one on this slide. Okay. Okay, so again, this is, you're seeing this through all the levels, reducing the water budgets, adjusting the drought rates. And again, I've got 25% in here, but that doesn't mean that that's what you'd be tied to. You would have the option to implement at a reduction level that you felt was appropriate based on the situation. But actually, I guess the way this is written, it would give us a cap up to 25%.
Okay.
So.
Well, if you're already going to tell people that they can't water their grass, then
yeah, we're going to meet it.
You're going to meet it.
We're going to meet it, right? Again, new construction meters not being issued. This is another big one. Thinking on that 40% thing.
Oh, I think it goes along with what we already said. It would eliminate an industry.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
But prior to getting a construction meter, wouldn't the builder have to get a building permit from the city or county? So at that point, they'd be stopped as well.
There's a possibility they'd be stopped there too. Yeah, I mean, if there was a really serious shortage situation where we had land use agencies involved, it's certainly possible that they would stop it before we could. Okay. Okay, so level 5, watering of grass is prohibited. Point blank, that's just that. Grass at parks and school grounds would be watered with recycled water.
Didn't we just change that in level 4?
Well, we changed it so that you can still water grass with subterranean. Yeah. So this. Okay. So again.
What are you talking about?
grass at parks and schools would be watered only with recycled water, and then golf courses would be reduced, but this is not. Again, our golf courses are on and on potable source, so this is, we'll go back to that poor O'Donnell statement. Any thoughts on these ones?
I think it depends on the time of year. I mean, it's not that restrictive in the winter, but it's
Right.
pretty rough in the summer.
Right. Again, we can keep these in the plan as of, if we were to hit 50%, and then if we were to hit 50% and it's July and you decide that these need to be changed, they could be changed.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, more watering, but trees, desert plants, and shrubs can only be watered with drip during daylight hours. So really the only change there is that in the previous levels, they could be watered anytime. And now if they're on a drip system or a different system, they can only be watered during the evening or night. Again, reducing the water budgets and adjusting the drought rate, and a moratorium or net zero demand on new connections. So that's a really big one. That means your connection's in place and you would have a moratorium on its use.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. I mean, 50% seems more drastic.
Yeah, 50% is drastic.
Yeah.
Are we comfortable leaving it there with the, the knowledge that we could shift if needed?
Well, it gives us flexibility up to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one I'm not as worried about on the 50s.
Okay. Okay, so here's the really dire situation. If it's more than 50%, this is our highest level, level 6. So at this point, we've got nurseries not watering, all outdoor watering prohibited. Restaurants are shifting to disposable plasticware or disposable silverware and plates, and mandatory rationing would be implemented. So these are the only items we have in level 6.
And that's assuming that they are using domestic water.
Assuming that they're using domestic water. But this would be, this is the most dire situation, right? This would be 50% or more. So that's when things get, as restrictive as they get. These are the most restrictive items.
Could you put in there commercial nurseries using domestic water? Does that
Sure.
make it too, because if a nursery's on their own water supply
Yeah.
or using.
I can put that, I can put that throughout if that would be.
Well, it just seemed, probably so, because it just seems that, a commercial nursery is gonna look through this and say, hey, I don't like this.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Well, but it's true that no pumper is impacted by, we don't have any
Right.
authority over private pumpers.
Right, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so no pumper or non-potable user would be affected, but I can put it in there, there's no harm in that.
I might be nitpicking.
No,
Or maybe
there's
just
no
put
harm
it
in
in.
clarifying it.
Put it in the beginning, in the introductory statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
That would be good, so you wouldn't have to mess up all the.
Yeah.
Keep them short.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
like that.
I will say there's a lot of language in the plan already that
Yeah.
describes who this is applicable to.
Okay.
But yeah, I can understand.
No,
that
that's
being
good,
considered.
that's good.
Okay.
If it's in the kind of the forward,
Okay.
And then the outdoor watering is prohibited. Can we put a temperature on that? The damage that would, and the financial impact to the valley of everybody's shrubs and things dying would be huge.
You're right, but keep in mind, we're now more than 50%. So I kind of think that at this point, it's a good idea to have these things in the plan. And if it was at 50% and it was summer and you didn't want to do it, you didn't have to. But if we're in really bad shape and we need to conserve water for drinking and bathing and hospital use, you may want to implement that. I'm not saying that you would in a drought scenario or if we were at just 50%, but if we were in a situation where we were really having a hard time getting water to a hospital, we might want that to be an action that we can take.
It's also conceivable that because we're so decentralized, under an earthquake, we might just have small sections that we can't get the right water pressure to. We can't get the right, demand supply to. And we want to be able to implement these in a localized way where it might not impact anybody else.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and the more likely scenario. And I don't think that that's something that we've written into the plan, but maybe that needs to be added as some language about being able to break this down into smaller segments as needed. I think that's a good suggestion.
Fences,
Yeah.
valves.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important.
Put the bucket in your shower and then use that for your.
Okay, so then I just wanted to go through what our enforcement levels are, and this is, these are existing, we're just moving them forward. So level 1 is education, and I would say, I don't know, have a percentage, but the vast majority of these are resolved with education and were resolved with education during the drought. So what happens a lot in our service area is we find a broken sprinkler or some runoff, and the homeowner has absolutely no idea because either they don't live here full time or their irrigation system is running when they're asleep. As Peter mentioned, sometimes you need to check it. And when we let them know, they fix it right away. So very rarely do we have a situation where this goes past education, but it does happen. We have also implemented a little bit of a traffic school type process. So if you end up getting fined because you didn't fix your issue, you can attend one of our water waste workshops and then the fine will be waived. We're in no way trying to make money off of this so much as we're getting people's attention. But as you see these fines progress, it's because some people do not and will not fix these issues. We had situations during the drought where we were finding people $2,000 a month every month, and they were not fixing their issues. And so, we need. They pay.
Wow.
A lot of times sometimes it's people who just don't care. Sometimes it's organizations, so like an HOA, and they need to fix something and they have to vote on it. And so, if they need that, we've given grace periods to allow for that. But sometimes it's like, well, we have to vote on it and we didn't come to a conclusion, and so we're going to table it for a meeting in 6 months. And so those are the things where we're like, no, if there's a broken sprinkler and it's running down the street, you cannot table it 6 months. We need you to fix it. So these things have happened, but the vast majority of any of our water waste enforcement has always been education, and we do have an appeals process in place. So we've done things in the past before, like where someone has had a number of water waste fines and they want to appeal, and we'll say something like, well, listen, if you apply for a rebate program and you put in desertscape and get rid of that landscape, which you're doing anyway, we'll waive all the fees or we'll waive all the fines, just do this. So we've got an appeals process in place. We're really not trying to get anyone's money. We're just trying to get people to fix these issues as they come up. Okay, so I got lots of feedback. Thank you for that. If you have any more, I'd be happy to take it. But just so you know the next steps, this is we'll be revising this. I'll be sharing it with the other water agencies. Right now, the same draft that you just saw is available for public review. So those stakeholders who participated are welcome to comment on it. And then this will be before the board for adoption June 22nd. It does need to be submitted to DWR by July 1st. And then, as I mentioned before, every year we'll be doing an assessment, coming to you and letting you know if staff recommends implementing any of the shortage levels based on the assessment that's done that year.
Katie, you mentioned in the very first slide climate change assessment. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
What is our obligation? I mean, it seems like a big bite.
It is. So this shortage plan is one part of the urban water management plan. And within the urban water management plan, there is a climate change assessment that's going on. So in all of our water management plans, there is some climate change adaptation. I kind of wish Steve was here to talk about it right now. But we assess, there are climate models that have been done by the state. We incorporate those models into our plans to project impacts of climate change on future supply and demand. So it'll be part of the larger plan that you'll see.
Outside of this plan.
It's outside of this plan, but the results are incorporated into the urban water management plan, not the water shortage contingency plan, but into the full urban water management plan.
Good. That helps. Thanks.
Great.
So you're going to present this to all the other water districts?
I am.
Good luck.
Yes, thank you.
So,
Thank
I'm sure that everybody south of us or east of us will be on board, but the other two may want to go stricter. We'll see what happens.
And that might be the case. So the thing is, we might be a little bit different, and we might adopt plans that are a little bit different. And if that happens, that's okay. But we wanted to be as aligned as we could. We didn't want to create the confusion that we created in 2014. This really was an effort to try to streamline as much as possible. If there are small differences, there are small differences. But if we can be as aligned as possible, that's what we were really going for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
So just FYI, Director Estrada had left the meeting, I think, right at the beginning of Katie's presentation.
About 8:50.
Yeah, so, yeah, he does, but just so you know, we no longer have a board member calling in. So we don't have to do roll calls anymore.
That's correct.
And then on items 12A and 12C, I have a real property interest that is immediately next door to both of those projects. I'm not even sure where C is. I'm assuming it's where I think. But I'll recuse myself on 12A and 12C. And for convenience, why don't we take 12B right now? Oh, sorry, Dan. Oh, no, I can recuse now and then do A and C, and then I'll come back in.
For B.
And I'll take, auction off the gavel. Anybody want it? Since our vice president isn't here.
Gonna lead the meeting.
You guys are in charge.
Who has seniority?
Yeah, I'll take it. So let's go with, as soon as John leaves the building, let's go with item 12A, and it looks like you're up. Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Good morning. So this request is to authorize the general manager to execute a construction contract with RIC Construction in the amount of $460,915 to install an emergency standby generator for our Well 6808 project located south of Airport Boulevard and east of Van Buren Street. Along with the additional expenditures, the total project request is $542,000. So this project came about back at the end of last year. A Cal OES grant became available under a competitive process. And this grant really was geared towards providing more resiliency for systems, especially those that serve disadvantaged communities. And so we have always been looking at increasing the number of generators in our system to help power our wells in the event of a seismic event, power outage, whatever. So this project was a great fit for us. And by way of background, roughly about a third of our wells have standby generators, and so that is really low. And that was identified in the risk and resilience assessment that was done about a year and a half ago. So since then, we've been on a program to really expand our capacity to continue to provide our customers with water in the event of a earthquake or power outage. So again, this project was a really good fit. So back in October, we applied for this grant, and we were informed in March of this year that we actually got the grant in the amount of $300,000. So out of the total request of $542,000, $300,000 will be paid for by this grant. So we feel this is a great project. It will serve the communities of Thermal Mecca all the way down to Salton City.
Where's the grant from again?
California. OES. Yeah, Cal OES, California Office of Emergency Services.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, great. Any board questions for Dan as he's up here? All right, and this is the amount that we saw in the budget. It was like it increased the budget, and we looked at yesterday in the study session, right? Okay, this is that project. All right, good. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. And then let's move on to item C. approving and adopting a resolution for the DWSRF grant funding application. This is C, so he had a. One more. I'll get him. So, yeah, so he said he had something problem with C. So let's do this one. Mr. Q. Are you up on this?
Yeah.
You're on C, Jeff.
You're on
You're on
C.
C? Yeah.
Kind of laid back there.
Yeah, come on, I gotta keep a right ship here. It's, you know, I haven't done this in a while.
I forgot about this. Yes. Thank you, Acting President.
Thank you very much.
Nelson. Thank you.
Salutation.
Oh, I had forgotten about this one. So we do have an active USDA application in process on this project, but funding's uncertain and the timing is unknown. So we're asking the board to approve a resolution authorizing staff to apply for a drinking water SRF grant to fund 100% of the $4.4 million cost to replace the ion exchange treatment system for well 7991. And this represents, provides domestic water to Mecca and CVWD's Bombay Beach production zone. So this is an area that has high arsenic values and has a high level of importance to that community.
Okay, so we're approving the grant application. Any questions for Jeff or staff? Okay, I entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Okay, motion and seconded. No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. So let me go
And
out.
Jeff, while you're up, why don't you go back and get President Powell, maybe wake up a little bit.
So just so you know, unless you tell me otherwise, I do not go to these meetings.
Yeah, and I've been missing quite a few because the ordinances come up, so. Because we don't have.
Okay, so on to item 12B. This is the, Elizabeth, take it away. I don't need
Thank
to read
you.
it.
Good morning.
Okay, all right, good.
This board action item is regarding a self-insured automobile liability program effective July 1st, 2021. Staff is recommending that the board authorize the general manager to execute forms necessary to establish the district as a self-insured public agency with the appropriate state agencies. Also, we are looking for authorization to select, execute, and negotiate the term of a single source agreement for a third-party administrator to handle the Coachella Valley Water District's automobile liability claims in an amount not to exceed $110,000. The way it's written in the recommendation is to allow us the ability to negotiate the term of the agreement. I have penciled out a 2-year term with one additional 3-year term, but this is an item that we are talking with several companies, and the term has not yet been set. It's looking to be about $20,000 a year, perhaps less. And the third-party administrator would basically handle the claims from beginning to end. They would have the expertise, the attorneys, the computer systems, indexing systems, the ability to review medical reports, all of that. So we are here today asking that the board authorize this item. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should look for a new broker, for one thing.
This is our new broker.
Oh, this is our new broker, okay. Because it's hard to believe that with all the insurance companies out there, we couldn't find somebody with,
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it out there. The market is very tight for, especially for auto right now.
The automobile insurance has always been a very hard market. The district has been insured, it's considered a one-line type of insurance. Most organizations our size have an extremely high self-insured retention on their automobiles. Metropolitan Water District, they have a $25 million self-insured retention on everything. But with regard to the auto market, we have always had a difficult time having insurers come to the table. And right now, we're in a 40-year hard market with insurance. Insurance is going to be 50% higher in most lines of insurance. Insurance companies are not even offering the same capacity of insurance. And currently, some of our neighboring agencies, they have to have their quotes right now for the July 1 renewal. And some agencies cannot even get a response for quotes right now, because if there's only this much insurance on the market and the demand is here, people cannot get what they need.
right, but we're asking to have an insurance company come and insure just the vehicles, right?
Correct.
And so maybe we are gonna have to take a deep dive, and it sounds like through reading this that we have, and it hasn't been great, but maybe we're gonna have to have somebody take over, the cars plus some of the other stuff that we have insured to get somebody to come in, right? And that's what
That is what we're looking at, but
Okay.
right now, what we have on the table is that Aegis Insurance Company will be our excess insurance on the subject, and with a $2 million per occurrence self-insured retention.
Okay.
Next month, we will be bringing insurance in front of the board to take a look at closer, but at the moment, that's what we have.
Okay, then I would make a motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second to approve item 12B. Any other discussion before we vote? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passed 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good. 13A, board member general comments. Director Nelson.
Hang on just a second. There was an email that came through to us, and I thought it was noteworthy that there's a committee meeting today at noon, at 1 o'clock in Washington. The Water and Science Committee, I think, and a number of people that we know are testifying on the drought in the West. And it's at 1 o'clock, and it was sent out to us. That looks pretty interesting, but if you can't watch it, the results of that might be kind of interesting. So that's the only comment.
I mean, I would think that's an opportunity for investment in infrastructure.
Yeah, would be here. Would be
Right?
here.
I mean, that's
Exactly right.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Director Aguilar?
Just a question, and Jim, if you'd prefer to send an email or otherwise, it'd be fine, but can we get an update on the water tender situation at Oasis Park?
I can give you that to our general manager.
Okay, great, thank you.
Director Bianco?
No comments.
Yeah, and I heard, or I saw something come through that there's going to be a memorial for Corky Larson on June 5th.
On June 5th, yeah.
And at the Lutheran Church, I forget the time, sorry. Uh-oh, well, if you get the time, let me know. But I know they were holding off on that because of COVID. So if I'm available, I'll probably make a point of being there.
Yeah.
I will be there.
Yeah. 11 at, yeah, Saturday, June 5th, at the Lutheran, Hope Lutheran, yeah. On Portola, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome, okay. I guess that's my comment. And then meetings, May 12th, CRB, Directors Nelson and Estrada.
The CRB meeting. Yeah, we held the CRB meeting via Zoom, and we had, that was a month ago. I chaired it. But we received the report on the river conditions. It looks like it's the third driest basin winter and runoff season that we've had. It's creating some havoc. We talked about the tribal and NGO participation in the 2026 guideline review, and we had then thereafter we had a 6-agency committee meeting and a CRA meeting. Nothing of real noteworthy.
Thank you.
Mostly reporting.
Yeah, I saw that interview that Jeff Keitlinger did that was circulated yesterday on email, and he commented on the tribal participation in the 2026, the new version of the shortage contingency rules. That it was very positive in terms of the need for them to participate.
Yeah, and mostly in California, the tribal interests have quantified amounts from the California versus Arizona decree. And so in California, we're a little more settled on amounts. In Arizona, particularly, and some of the upper basin states, that involvement will be necessary kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so next, May 13th, we have the CVCC and then the E&E.
I did not make either of those.
All right. I see Director Aguilar listed for the E&E.
I did not make that.
Okay, got it. May 13th, DVBA. I did make that, and it was an in-person meeting.
Wow.
Which was our first one. And let me just pull up my notes on that real quick. It was at the Air Museum. It was kind of funny. I was like, oh, good, we're going to the Air Museum. It'll be this gigantic hangar so we can be socially distanced. And it turns out we were in a little tiny conference room. Everyone jammed together. It was kind of funny. Oh, yeah. So reviewed financials. The comment, which is true, lots of turnover on city managers. It's been kind of an epidemic around the valley. And then they had even this second in command in Palm Springs, I guess, is retiring. Long lead times, prices of building materials like steel and lumber are through the roof.
Yes.
Shortage on skilled labor. I've heard plumbers and electricians. So that, that whole thing. I mean, I think the building industry is kind of coming along, but then now they have these other problems, the lumber prices I've heard are like triple.
Yes, they have.
Anyways, and then they had their lunch earlier that day. They had 80 people in attendance. Pretty impressive. Anyways, that's that meeting. Disadvantaged communities on the 18th. Directors Estrada and I were there. God, I had notes on that too. It was on the 18th. 33 participants on Zoom. We have this new map. I don't know who prepared this, Carrie, but it's really great. Showing all the projects, connecting water and sewer to these various communities. We call them consolidations. And so we went over that, and water connections, sewer connections, and all the other stuff that's on the agendas. But it feels like we're making some progress, which is great. May 20th, Water Education Foundation, Lower Colorado River virtual toured. Oh, Director Estrada. Guess we'll report on that later. And we had a study session on May 24th. That's it for what's listed. Are there any other meetings that you want to report on?
Yeah, I have a few, Mr. Chairman. On May 13th, I attended the 2021 Secure Act water report for San Joaquin Sacramento hydrology report. required by the Bureau. They did it on the Colorado River Basin and some other basins. It was another high level, very probably higher level than it should have been, report on that basin. And of course, the Sacramento River feeds the CVP and the State Water Project as exchange contractors and so forth. So it was interesting. The same day on 5/13, we had a strategic plan ad hoc committee of the California Farm Water Coalition, where we were choosing and putting forth names to contact regarding our strategic plan and critical partners that are members of the coalition and their participation in that. So we were nominating names for those 12. Then on 5/14, May 14th, I had a Basin States Principal meeting. The purpose of the meeting was to meet with the other basin states in the Colorado River to discuss how to move forward with the CRSS Upper Basin Modeling Program and how that is really showing the problematic situation on the river with the hydrology that we have now, and what looking at potentially a level 2 shortage in 2022 and a level 3 shortage in 2023, and what that might look like even after that. And so we're kind of putting some worst case scenarios together, and then how to look at that, how to communicate that and address that situation. So I was supported by Chris on that as well. And then on 5/20, although I saw Director Estrada was attending the Water Education Foundation Lower Colorado River virtual tour. Prior in the month, I had done an interview with the Water Education Foundation, and they put all those interviews along the river together. It was a really cool video, and showed that and the attendees. Then on the virtual tour, then we all participated in kind of breakout sessions, and so I represented the urban water districts of Southern California with Bill Hazenkamp and Metropolitan, so it was kind of an interesting committee. We had a few participants in our group, and it was a good virtual tour for the Water Education Foundation, which they hope to go online next year. But it was good. There were a lot of, there were some tribal interests from California which participated in the group when we stayed after, and we're talking about CRUA, and we had some CRUA board members there, and I think CRUA is this week, the board?
Oh, it's right now, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah, and they're talking about whether to put together a real in-person meeting or a virtual meeting. So
yeah, the budget.
We got our votes in, actually.
Yeah, I saw the budget we're budgeting to have full exhibits and everything in December.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I couldn't attend their meeting because my number one priority is this meeting.
There you go.
I don't know why they had them at the same time.
So yeah, I got our vote in for in-person meeting.
Yeah, good.
And so that was on the 20th, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any others? All right, is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
In a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passed. General Manager reports.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Just a quick update on where we are with COVID. Since last year, we've had 90 positive recovered cases, 2 mortalities. Right now, we have 0 direct contacts, 0 indirect contacts, 0 people off work, and 0 cases in May. I think we did report last time on where we were with the survey we did. We've got about 55 folks that are either fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated. We've got about another 10% folks who are planning to get vaccinated. And then the remainder, 30%, have no plans of getting vaccinated.
Well, why is that 20? That'd be 80%.
So 55 and 10 is 65, plus 30 is 95. There's probably 5% that we don't have a response from because they were on vacation or they just didn't answer their phone, and I'm sure they'll follow up. But substantially, most of the employees are planning on getting vaccinated. We are looking at opening up the facilities subsequent to the governor's comments on June 15th. And I think we're taking steps to accommodate that. Unfortunately, we are doing some construction in the lobby, the customer lobby in Coachella. We probably will postpone opening that facility until probably the end of June. But that's along those lines. On the Oasis Mobile Home Park, we had a discussion yesterday with EPA. We have heard that Scott Lawson's children, his heirs, have frozen the bank accounts and were not planning on paying for the water tender moving forward. But EPA, their emergency response section, is planning to pick up the cost of the water tender. They are looking at potentially expanding the hours, 2 additional hours, and there'll be some discussion of, where those 2 hours go. Currently, we're on site for 5 hours. It's an hour on each side, so that's 7 hours. The staff hours are basically a 9-hour workday, so we've got 2 more hours with the same individual before we go into double shifts. And so right now it looks like they'll want us there from 12 noon until 7 p.m. And that'll be about $4,500 a week. Because we were a little concerned that Mr. Lawson was a credit risk, potentially, we then asked him to provide payment in advance on a monthly basis. I don't think we have the same concerns with EPA, so we'll probably move to an invoice system monthly.
Just a bureaucratic risk, not a.
Yeah, I don't know that the risk is any less.
All right, well, maybe we can get them to pay in advance, but they did say they were optimistically thinking they would have a check for us tomorrow. I suspect we'll probably see it towards the end of the week, but we've still got to work out where we are with hours of operation. We did look at the possibility of trying to stage the tender in different parts of the park. If we're there for 5 or 7 hours, we can kind of move to 5 or 7 different places kind of on the hour. The problem there is we need permission from someone to be able to do that. And when we asked previously, the answer was no. You'll set up it right there on the highway right away, and that's where we'll continue to be unless we're able to work out something else. I'm not quite sure how long this will take. Clearly, I am still very concerned about the exit strategy. The tender is not fully utilized now. It seems like an excessive cost. I don't know what's going to happen. One of the reasons why we thought the tender was not more utilized was because there was also bottled water that was being provided. I don't know that the bottled water will continue or not continue, but we do have concerns that if someone doesn't step in and begin operating the business of the park, collecting rents, taking trash away, paying electrical bills, it could become much more significant an issue than it is right now.
Thank you.
And that's all I got, sir.
Okay. Council report?
Yes, Mr. President, just to reiterate what Jim was talking about in terms of going back to public meetings, and perhaps you've heard of this, but every statewide association of public agencies, including the League, CMUA, Aqua, sent a letter to the governor on May 18th, which requested that if the governor is going to be repealing the executive orders or doing something different after June 15th in regard to the Brown Act waivers that are currently in place, that it would be good to have A, advance notice of that, and B, a 30-day transition in order to make the move back to public locations. And the concern being that if there's going to be a return to fully public locations, what sort of preparations need to be made, what will the governor require in order to have it back in public. So that was a request to have some advance notice, and a 30-day transition. You can move faster or slower than you want, but to have some advance notice of what the new Brown Act procedures will be. This has to do with the executive order of the governor. On a separate track, there are at least 3 bills pending that may change the way that the Brown Act requires teleconferencing to make it more flexible moving forward, based on either the option of having a virtual connection to board meetings. There may actually be changes to a board member attending via teleconference, perhaps not having to have an agenda in their hotel room and open to the public. So that's a separate tract, but the first tract is trying to get a handle on what the governor is going to do with a new or a repealed executive order. So we'll certainly keep you abreast of that.
Thank you. Do we have any staff reports today? Hearing none. Then at this time, the board will recess into closed session to discuss the item 15A as shown on the agenda, and we will reconvene after to report out on the closed session. Good. Regular meeting is hereby reconvened. We do have one reportable action. Jeff, would you cover that, please?
Yes, Mr. President, the board met in closed session in regard to the claim as stated for the closed session under 15A on a motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Aguilar. And a vote of 5-0, the board took action to reject the claim and to instruct that the appropriate notice be sent to the claimant. And that was the end of the closed session.
4-0, right? The vote.
I'm sorry, 4-0.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We had one absent. Good. Thank you very much. And with no further business, we are adjourned.
Thank you, sir.